to be Grandpa. And then, look, this guy, Daniel Day-Lewis, he plays Lincoln, and he studies for a year. And this is what we get. I'm Lincoln. I could have done that in 4 seconds. But I spent 55 years preparing to play Grandpa Munster, so you can bet that I studied him yet. For you?
I think I'm next to Al Lewis, the reincarnated.
Oh, that's the same.
Yeah. You think you know, but you don't know.
Yeah. And then you, how did you want Butch to answer the same question? What happened to Wolf?
Wolf took on a life of his own at the show, and I was actually out doing an Ironside about 8 years after the show ended, maybe I was 19 years old. And Eddie Keys, who was 93 years old, who I really didn't even know was alive and working on the lot, came up and said, here's something you should have, and he handed me Wolf, so to take him home and don't tell anybody. So I took him home, didn't take very good care of him, he fell apart, and then he's been since restored, and I do have 3 variations of the original Wolf, so I got 3.
Yeah,
there's new stuff coming out. One of the good things about the Rob Zombie reincarnation of the Munsters movie is a lot of great toys and merchandise is hitting the shelves. As you can see here, my character, Tin Can Man. If you come over to our table, Danny has got a whole bunch of great stuff being made by a gentleman named Brett's Toys. So anyway, yeah, it's half the fun.
And then we've also got, I'm showing you this, I'm going to keep pushing this stuff because that's what you do. See this? This didn't exist before yesterday, and here it is today. This is like the slide puzzles we had when we were kids. This is the very first place you could get them. And if you're interested, come by our tables. We'd love to share them with you. I want to vote this guy most likely to play Vincent Price in House of Wax. Sir, could you stand up in the plaid shirt? Yes, you, sir. Stand up. Here, look at the crowd. And go, yeah, Vincent Price. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Perfect. You look great.
That was a very dark and dingy, dusty, cobwebby, and I wasn't on the new set, so this is the gentleman that you probably would be asking, but I can vouch for the old set. What I've seen is the black and white version is not nearly as colorful, and the fabric and the texture between old film and modern day videotape is quite different. So you're going to see a very current, modern technology savvy show, but it still carries the same. It still carries the same basic guidelines of the Munsters, you know, with the families and the characters and the fun of it, with the technology improvement. So it's kind of it'll be interesting for me to see it. From what I've seen, I'm very happy with it. I like it. I think it's got a great look to it.
You guys, the Munsters that Butch was in took place in the United States of America, and because our Munsters is a story about the beginning of their relationship. It takes place where their relationship began, Transylvania. So Rob has created a very fantastic Transylvania in which we live and exist. I'm so excited for people to see how great the new Transylvania is. Almost as excited as I am to take the guy who keeps hitting that button and break his guy. The poor guy in the front here just nodded off, or just out, and then bang! I'm sorry. The movie's a PG-rated movie. It's got literally a softer rating than 2 of the last 7 Disney films that have come out. I don't think people should be mad. I mean, look, Rob's our friend. We know him as a friend, but I'm here to tell you he's an artist first and foremost. So if Rob Zombie was going to make a Harry Potter movie, it would be a Harry Potter movie for kids, but it would have his signature. That's kind of what he did with the Munsters. So nobody should be afraid. They should be grateful that Rob Zombie's doing the movie and it's not another TV movie in which they kind of rush it into production quickly, do the best they can, but shoot it in 3 weeks. You know, this was a movie that it took Rob 20 years to get off the ground.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I love about it is Rob is doing this as a fan first and a director second, and he understands that. He's really a huge fan of the show, and he loves it. And he's not doing it for the paycheck, and he's doing it for his vision and his version of what he believes the Munsters is all about, and I think it's going to be great. Unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of people making opinions and making judgment calls before they've ever seen it, and I just tell people, if you just leave your baggage at the door and you want to be entertained, you'll be entertained. And I think it's going to be wonderful, but a lot of, let's just hope for that.
Yeah, thank you, Butch. I think you're right. Yeah, if you just figure this is the Munsters now, and it doesn't. What was always confusing to me is people kept saying you can't replace the Munsters. Well, who was hired to replace the Munsters? We were hired to play the characters. You can't replace the Munsters. And the other good news is the Munsters doesn't go away. It's still there. Now there's another version of it. So, for what it's worth.
My most memorable moment of being Eddie Munster was the last scene of the last day of Munster Go Home, which was the movie that was made after the show was canceled. Normally, you very, very rarely, it was the first time for me to ever actually have the last scene of the movie be the last scene in actual film. It just doesn't work out that way. And it was very surreal that the 10 o'clock at night on the last day of filming, to jump in the Munster coach and drive away from Munster Hall, which is the backlot of Universal, but it was supposed to be England, and knowing that when we turned the car off and got out of the car, that we would never ever be together again as the Munsters. And it just happened to be the last shot of the movie. It just worked out that way. Very surreal. Maybe it was because it was late, maybe it was because we were tired, and maybe the whole thing came together, but for me that was the most memorable moment, is when we all knew this was the end of the road, so to speak, and we happened to be driving away from Munster Hall at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
And for me, geez, they were all memorable. The first day, the last day. The last day we shot of our movie, we shot the scenes outside the castle. And if you see it in the trailer, where he says, when they made me, they broke the mold, and I say, with you in it, I presume. That was my gig, Grandpa. And that was in a real castle in Budapest. And what's great about the castle in Budapest is it was built only 100 years ago. The town built it 100 years ago to be like an old-fashioned castle in the middle of their town. And somebody snuck into the back of that castle a statue of Bela Lugosi, who was Hungarian. And so in the back of that castle is an illegal Bela Lugosi bust. If you come by my table, I'll show you a picture of it. Rob and I, we couldn't wait to run to find it. It was pretty great. So those moments with those people, I respect Rob and Sherry and Jeff so much. And we lived together for 3 months. We flew over in a private plane, we lived together, and then we flew back, just the same 4 people. And it was kind of extraordinary to have that entirety of that event be such a tight-knit group. And they're all vegan and I'm not. So,
and to be done in such secrecy in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, it's true. We did pretty good. Is the counter roll I wanted to play for a long time? How did I get it? All right, I'm going to tell you guys how I got it, because they gave me the microphone. I got it because God is good. So I'm going to say that. God is good. When I was, 7 of us forgot. 270 people dressed as devils around us. And we're like, we're gonna. So, yeah, in a extraordinary turn of events, when I was a little boy, I loved Dracula, and the reason I loved Dracula is because it was the only monster you could be without having to buy a Don Post $39 mask. So all you needed was a tuxedo. So I said to my mother when I was 11, I need a tuxedo with those things in the bottom. What, you know, the things, tails? Yeah, tails. So she found me a tuxedo for an 11-year-old boy. And then I said to my grandmother, I need a cape with one of those things up here. What do you mean? I don't know, that thing that Dracula had. Okay, so she made the cape. And then I was asked to audition for a circus. And I went and I auditioned, and then they said, what kind of character will you play? And I said, I'll play a vampire clown. What's his name? The Count? This is true, 12 years old. I'm going to work every weekend as a funny vampire clown named Count. 48 years later, Rob calls, says, would you play Grandpa? I say, if you're punking me, it's the cruelest thing anybody's ever done to me. I said, I'm not punking. And so he said, I'll send you the script. By the way, this character isn't named Grandpa because Eddie's not in the movie. So his name is the Count, because it's Count Dracula. Now, see what I mean? So I was always going to be the Count in Rob Zombie's movie. It just took God 47 years to put everybody in the right place at the right time, at the right moment, for me to have been given the role. And it wasn't an audition, he just called him. Like he called Butch. Just called and said, would you do it?
Well, and plus we worked 9 projects over it. So
yeah,
he knew you were the go-to guy for him.
Right, and he knew that I'm a guy who doesn't complain, you guys, like on sets, work. There's an old story, and it's true of me. My father worked for the city, and we would put in on weekends, we put copper piping in people's to connect their water line to the city, and we do it. That was a side job. We'd have to dig 6 feet down because it was Pennsylvania, so the pipes didn't freeze. And I always say, my worst day as an actor is 10 times better than my best day digging those holes with my father. So, it all works out fine.
Well, and another thing real quickly before we move on is when I found out that Dan was going to be doing the Count, Grandpa, whatever, I knew that this was going to be good because he's the Rock, because of his knowledge of Al Lewis's character and Fred Gwynne's character. So I knew that Sherry Moon's wonderful. I didn't know Jeff Daniels Phillips, but I've seen him now. He did a great Herman. But I knew Dan, being there and being the glue and the cement for the Munsters, he would be great and the show would be good. And he was giving me updates, and he told me how well it was going, so I couldn't talk about it because I couldn't admit that I was in the movie for the longest time, so it was very frustrating, but I knew that this was going to be good because he was born to play the Count, and lo and behold, like you said, it's perfect, in a perfect world, and God is great, and here he is doing it, but that was the best thing, the news that I had, and I knew he would be very, very good at getting the best characters out of the other two because of his knowledge of the show, and it worked.
Thank you, very kind. Listen, it's up to you guys. You have to watch it, love it, go online. What people say, no, this is good, you go. As a matter of fact, I think it's terrific. And I think Universal Studios and Netflix should make another one. Thank you.
My biggest thing is I just hope that everybody that sees it that was, kind of like have negative thoughts and negative, I hope they're big enough people to admit that they were wrong and say, hey, I loved it, and not be one of those that, wouldn't admit that, they made a mistake. Because I think it is going to be good, and I think they give it half a chance to enjoy it, but some people just are a little tough to admit they might have been mistaken. Let's hope for the best.
Hope for the best. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everybody, give them a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody.
We're
We're right over there if you need us.
How many people are going to go and see the Munsters? Show of hands.
Woohoo!
All right.
They only have to go to their living room.